Sarah, we can't hear you.
I can hear you now.
Sorry. Welcome back to another episode of the DD Geopolitics podcast. I'm here with my awesome co-host Yara, and our guest today is the wonderful orator Marwa Osman, accomplished assistant professor of media studies and presenter and host of Press TV in Lebanon. Hi Marwa, how are you today?
I'm doing good considering the bad news that we're having. Thank you for having me. Hello to you, Sarah, and to you, Lara.
Yara, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited for the conversation. Of course, also constantly kind of conflicted with what's happening, but trying to do our best to spread, the truth.
So Marwa, let's on a personal level, how are you feeling, and what in the current state of flux that your region is in?
Well, Sarah, I'll be very honest with you. I'm suppressing whatever feelings of depression I might get or feelings of grief I might get because now I have a responsibility, not only as a mother of three, but also a person who works in the system of education. I have hundreds of students that I see every day, and most of whom have never been through a war in their life, or they were very, very young when the 2006 war hit us. So it's my job to give them high morale, to spread hope, to let them know that whatever happens, whatever it may be, we have to be steadfast. We have to be, this is a historic moment for us. We have to be as big as the moment is. We have to make sure that everyone needs everything they need in our communities. We have to stand together. We will not show any signs of defeat or any signs of weakness, because this is the historic moment that we have all been waiting for, that our ancestors and our grandparents and our great grandparents used to talk about, that it's just a dream for us. We are not only living that dream, we are making that dream possible. So I'm not really thinking about how I'm feeling. It's more of what I should do and what is needed of me in my community. So basically that's how I roll these days.
That's a smarter way to get through it, instead of like kind of internalizing it and making it about what you can do outside of you. Kind of what I think what everybody's sort of struggling with right now. So not to like bog you down or put you on the spot, but for our listeners, can you go through a little bit about how Lebanese internal politics and kind of like how Hezbollah integrates into that in the present, like in the last year or so? Because we know that those roles have kind of shifted a little bit over the last 20 or odd years, but how is it right now in this moment?
Well, it's almost a year since the president of Lebanon, Michel Aoun, left office, and we haven't been able to elect a new president. That's because of internal bickering, and that bickering is specifically because the new parliament that was elected last year does not have an obvious majority, meaning usually in the past years it was always a majority towards the elite that came directly after the end of the civil war in Lebanon with the first election in 1992. And which brought about the elite that were actually fighting with one another in the civil war, brought them to power. And Hezbollah didn't really enter into that domain of politics till after the assassination of late Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, when they entered full force into the Lebanese parliament and into the Lebanese politics. Before that, they just left it for Amal movement, their biggest ally, led by Speaker Nabih Berri, and they were just doing the job of the resistance, protecting Lebanon, trying to liberate Lebanon, and that's what they did in the year 2000. But in 2005, after the assassination and the new elections that came after that, because the country was in a turmoil, we had still Syrian forces in Lebanon from basically remnants from the civil war and from also fighting against the Zionist entity. We had many martyrs falling from the Syrian army against the Zionist entity before liberation. So at that time, Lebanon was in turmoil, Syria was in turmoil. So Hezbollah entered into the political scene and entered heavily, because the first list that it ever introduced to the people was voted fully. And from then on, it started becoming Hezbollah integrating into the Lebanese political scene more and more, especially after the global war in Syria in 2013. It started in 2011, but Hezbollah announced that it's entering into this war in 2013 by saying that we will be whatever we must, and we must now be besides our friends in and brothers in Syria, because this is a global campaign against them. Hence, the new experience they started gaining. The first experience was guerrilla warfare experience against an organized army, which is the Zionist occupation army. Their second set of experience that started in 2013 was against the Daesh remnants, also known in the West as ISIS, which we have no doubt, we actually have evidence of it being mercenaries paid for, trained by the West, especially by the United States of America, in camps like Al-Tanf, Al-Rukban, Al-Mayadin, and whatnot, especially the camp that are now being bombarded, by the way, by the resistance, but we'll talk about that later. So what happened after that, after the Syria scene, and when liberation started ensuing in Syria, and we lost very, very fine men, two of whom were my own students at the University of Ma'arif, and it was devastating for us, but at the same time dignifying, because we know, and we knew even back then, that they were protecting us against ISIS, which was right on the border between Lebanon and Syria. And there was a big campaign, a joint campaign between the Lebanese army and the Hezbollah resistance movement fighters, where they rid Lebanon from Daesh, ISIS terrorists, with a big operation. But sadly, we lost very fine men, both in the Lebanese army and Hezbollah. But liberation happened. We saw liberation of Tadmur, we saw liberation of Palmyra, we saw liberation of big parts of Aleppo, big parts of Homs and Hama, and big parts of Deir ez-Zor. And basically now more than 80% of the Syrian territory has been liberated. The remaining territories are either far north or far east or far south. And they are all occupied by ordinary military, meaning in the north you have the Turkish military. The remnants are obviously Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and al-Nusra fighters, who have their salaries paid by Turkey and their weapons given to them by Turkey. In the northeast you have the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces. We call them the Kurdish separatists, because they're trying to separate the Syrian state. That's not going to happen, but that's what we call them. And they have not fighting against the Syrian government, but they have been a vital part of the looting of the Syrian oil and gas, with obviously the help of the United States of America. And in the very south, or the southeastern part, where Al-Tanf base, the biggest base for occupation base of the United States of America, it's a triangle between Iraq, Syria, and Jordan, and it has been affected heavily since October 7 by the fire of the Iraqi resistance and the Syrian also National Defense Forces. Now, the experience that Hezbollah gathered made it a tough adversary for anyone who's against natives regaining their land from empires and colonial powers, basically. Hezbollah became very powerful to a point that it also started something later on to be known as the axis of resistance. And that included major regional players like Syrian Arab Army, like the Hashd al-Sha'bi, the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, like the National Defense Forces in Syria, especially those that are now engaging in Quneitra, near the Syrian Golan Heights. They are the ones who are launching those missiles in support of Palestine. And also we have the Yemeni brothers and sisters, also the Ansarullah movement, the resistance movement of the Yemeni armed forces, that has been under bombardment and besieged themselves since 2015 by the Saudi-US-led aggression. So now this power that started as very few men in 1982, founded to fight off the occupation, the Zionist occupation, ended up becoming a full force and leading a power in the region that is actually substituting the armies of the states of the region, because these states are being governed by puppet regimes installed by colonial powers, by the empire and its remnants, Britain, France, and the United States leading them, of course. Those regimes have full control of their armies, and any kind of armament that these armies get, they have to directly buy it from the United States of America, and obviously they only send them weapons that they can control in the hands of these puppet regimes. So now these armies in the axis of resistance are substitute basically to the regular armies of the puppet regimes, which is something that the United States of America doesn't like to see. And obviously Zionist Israel found that it is a grave threat for it, hence why it started attacking the axis of resistance. Israel was part of bombardment campaigns, more than 1,000 airstrikes against Syria since the beginning of the war, against posts of the Syrian Arab Army and the axis of resistance. We have Israeli pilots as well as US pilots took part of the bombardment campaign against Yemen alongside Saudi, also bomber drones and Saudi pilots bombing Sana'a and Sa'da and Hudaydah. And also we have seen some clashes between the Popular Mobilization Forces, especially the Hezbollah, the Iraqi Hezbollah factions, against remnants of the U.S. occupation in Anbar province, to be specific, especially in the Ain al-Asad air base. So this growing power, obviously, it grew bigger than the size of Lebanon, which tells you a lot about the history of the region, Sarah. I mean, we are known as the Levant, Bilad al-Sham in Arabic, Levant, meaning we, Lebanon, Syria, parts of Iraq, Jordan, and Palestine, we are one land. So any style or any form of field power, of military power that comes from within these natives, they share the history, the ancestry, the language, the religion, they share the land, they share everything. So obviously they're going to share the fights, and this is what we are seeing right now, which brings us to the point that the Sykes-Picot agreement between France, the French mandate, and the British mandate, history calls it mandate, we call it occupation. Between these two occupations, it is a clear evidence that this agreement, now 106 years later, proved to be invalid. They couldn't break us apart, with the evidence that now Gaza is being brutally attacked. The resistance in Gaza is fighting back. Lebanon is fighting back with its resistance. Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. So Yemen, historically, because it is the in Arabic books and history, it's called the father of Arabs. So the Arabic tribes, and Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is actually from that area, from Yemen. So they hold a very important historic and religious importance for the Muslim and Arab Ummah, or the Muslim and Arab nation. Hence why they are also a vital part of this axis of resistance. Now, if we take all that and try to place it on the plate of the Lebanese politics, it's just not going to work. Lebanon is just, it is a miracle to have 18 different sects from 3 different religions trying to live together without killing one another. We have been successful since the end of the civil war, but multiple times with the help of Zionist Israel and the US empire, there was attempts to stir sectarian fight in Lebanon. But thankfully, the power that has this power, the force, Hezbollah, that has this power, was always wise enough to say no. We are not going to fight one another. We did see a lot of skirmishes. We did see a lot of Hezbollah fighters dying in the streets because of, for example, Samir Ja'ja''s Lebanese forces. I'm talking about the main ally of the United States of America in Lebanon, who was a war criminal, by the way. But despite that, Hezbollah was very adamant on not taking violence to the streets and putting violence where it should be put, in retaliation to the attacks of the empire and its Zionist puppet. So with politics, Hezbollah decides to take it very easy, step by step, saying we need to sit down, we need to negotiate, we need to make a wise decision. Otherwise, they can take the country in less than 2 hours. But why would they want to do this? The only thing that will result out of this is hatred and contempt against them. Now, despite the political differences, everyone except like 20% of the Zionist puppets in Lebanon, basically more than 80% of the Lebanese public are standing behind Hezbollah, and this has not been the case since 2006. That is huge political development in Lebanon. So at the moment, what happened since the October 7 operation until now in Lebanese politics, we have seen several different sects, different political blocs stand behind Hezbollah and stand behind the rights of the Palestinians to fight. And we even saw the biggest sects in the Christian community, which were basically fighting as to whom the presidency should go to, because there's an unwritten rule in Lebanon that the president has to be a Maronite. You're never going to see me as president. Well, I intend to change that, but we'll also talk about later. But you never see me because there's an unwritten law that says he has to be a Christian Maronite. Hezbollah doesn't have a problem with that. Excuse me, the electricity will come and go as it pleases because this is how we live. So these two blocs, I'm talking about Gibran Bassil, who is the son-in-law of the former President Michel Aoun, but also he heads now one of the biggest Christian blocs in Lebanon, the Tayyar bloc. And we have also the Sulaiman Frangieh, who is Hezbollah's candidate for presidency, who's also head of the Marada bloc in Lebanon. And since the October 7, they actually got together after 2 years of not speaking to one another. They got together in a meeting and decided that this is a very important national moment and we need to get together and stick together and try to find some way to make politics work. So oddly enough, the massacres made them closer here in Lebanon, except again the puppet of the empire, Samir Jasha, who keeps nagging that Hezbollah is the one who's throwing rocks and rockets at Israel and we should stop because we don't need that war. He will never understand that we are one people. He will never understand that our blood is Gaza's blood, is Syria's blood, is Iraq's blood, is Yemen's blood, and is every Arab and every oppressed person's blood, as long as they are oppressed for justice. Never mind him. Politics in Lebanon is taking baby steps positively, but that would all stop in the event of a breakout of a major war in the region. And why would I say, why is it today that I anticipate a major war, but not, for example, this morning, but this afternoon? Because this afternoon, the Zionist entity began a very big incursion, a ground incursion towards Gaza, and committed a second massacre despite the genocide, the ongoing genocide for 25 days now. They committed a new massacre. So far, before I joined you, the number of civilians killed by the latest attack in Jabalia in Gaza is 700. 700. And last night, during the night, 300 humans were killed because they were taking refuge in a wedding hall. A wedding hall. Israel bombed them inside the wedding hall. And also, before I joined you, I saw a very, very, very emotional scene. But as I told you, Sarah, I've not been able to cry. The last time I cried was the night of the Baptist hospital massacre. I saw the footage. I could hear my heart break today because the paramedics in Gaza were able to perform a C-section on a martyr, on a dead woman who died under the strikes of the Israeli entity, but they were able to perform a C-section and deliver her baby. So, I mean, what more of a vile aggression, vile, inhumane genocide in front of the eyes of the world and the international community and the so-called Western world with its Western values keeps its mouth shut, just shuts its ears, shuts his eyes, and continue to live as is. They don't understand that whatever calamity and atrocity they are hitting us with, they will reciprocate. It will go even harder against them. We don't need to do that. Their own people are going to do it because people are seeing, people are opening their eyes, and it's happening, and it's like a dream come true, but it's coming like a nightmare for both of us for massacres that we are seeing and the burden of seeing our loved ones being killed like this, and at the same time for them a nightmare, because I don't think any human who has decency to self-respect that they would sit down and shut up concerning the genocide that is taking place. And I wholeheartedly believe that it will retaliate against the Western regimes by their own people.
You brought up so many interesting points, and I want to stress to our listeners that a lot of the concepts that Mar was talking about, they're just not, there's no equivalent in a Western understanding. So when you talk about like this sort of bond that transcends time and borders and selfishness. We don't have that in the West. We don't have a concept of that because it's every man for himself here, and there's no real history that's binding us together like there is for you. So I think that's where a lot of the misunderstanding comes from, is a culture clash on top of the inherent racism, but there's also a culture clash. But I do want to ask you personally, because I think I was with Yara, or I know I was on Twitter when it happened, but where were you on October 7th? And what was your reaction? Because mine was just disbelief, because I just figured it was more internet rumors. But what were you thinking that day? Or
well, I wake up pretty early because I have 3 little monkeys at home.
I know you wake up
they're
at like 4.
Awake all the time. But I woke up early. We were at my village house with my husband, my kids, and my parents as well, my father, my mother, and my sister. And we were just like saying goodbye to the last days of summer. And my house is in a village called Khiyam, and it is on the south eastern part of Lebanon. It's bordering both Syria and Palestine. And I intend to have all 3 nationalities when the liberation is over. But it borders, I can see the occupied Golan Heights, and I can see occupied Palestine, the northern part of Palestine, called the Galilee. So I was there, and I woke up really early. If I remember correctly, it was like 6:15 a.m. And it's such a nice day outside, and I was just like taking it easy. They haven't stormed my room yet, and I was just looking through my feed, and the first thing that I saw from a friend who lives in the occupied 1948 territories in Palestine, sending me a video telling me, wake up and smell the roses, come and see. I watched the video. The first ever video that I watched was the video of the Al-Qassam Brigade's resistance forces storming in a white pickup truck, the Gaza enclave, and they are driving by, and a big police occupation car is driving by, and it's the police car, the car of the Zionist entity, was all bulletproof car. And the guys were sitting in the back of the pickup truck. It was like a movie out of Hollywood. And the Israelis were rushing, and the resistance fighters were just like throwing bullets at them, firing at them. And by the way, there were a lot of colonial settlers around taken, because the footage that we saw was the footage taken by colonial settlers. So they were not hurt because Al-Qassam Brigades actually was targeting only the soldiers. And I can assure you that, because today at 2 p.m. Beirut time, I was live coverage on Press TV with the spokesperson of Hamas, who is in Lebanon right now. And there's a full 55 minutes of it. I'm going to be sharing every minute of it because it was absolutely very important. But I assure you, Hamas did not target civilians. What happened is that the Israeli entity bombed its own people. We'll talk about that later. But I saw that video first, and I just started shouting for my husband to come and see. The second video that just blew my mind was the paragliders. I was like, they're flying down on them. Come watch with me. This is unbelievably breathtaking. Come watch with me. My husband did not believe in one iota of any movie or any clip until it was like 12 p.m. He said, no, this is a military drill by the Israelis. No. I was like, I was in shock. I was jumping. I'm seeing something that's out of the ordinary. I'm seeing resistance fighters breaking that barrier, that wall that has been built there since 2005, since the Zionist entity left Gaza and basically besieged Gaza. It became a concentration camp, the biggest open air prison in the world. I see them blowing up these checkpoints, just marching down the streets, taking hold of military bases, taking hostages, which are soldier hostages. We all saw the head of the Gaza brigade and the Zionist entity being pulled out of his bed in his underwear. I mean, that's not something you see every day. So I was very excited as an Arab, as a Muslim, as a person from South Lebanon who witnessed firsthand the liberation of her country and then went through the 2006 aggression and massacre against the Lebanese people, but that ended up in a major victory for my people. Then watching this happening by people who are besieged, who are being killed by the Zionist entity by suffocation, them having this steadfastness to just push back. People keep saying Hamas violence, Hamas terrorists. What would you do if all your parents were killed? Most of the Hamas fighters have lost their parents of some of their family members over the past 25 years. That's why they are what you call radicals, what we call resistance fighters, because they are defending their people, trying to regain their land. And according to UN resolutions and according to UN charter, it is the actual existence of Israel is illegal. It is a colonizing entity that came over and took a land from people living there. And the UN Charter, which was chartered in 1917, even before the birth of the so-called Zionist entity, says that if a colonizer comes to a land, then the people have the full right for self-determination. Israelis came, or what they were called the refugees, the refugees who were supposedly kicked out of Europe after the World War II. They came as refugees. Golda Meir herself had a Palestinian passport before she took it on herself to eliminate and discriminate and annihilate the Palestinian people. The mere existence of the entity is illegal according to Western laws. According to our laws, they're not only occupiers, they are terrorists, and we have every right in every biblical book and every law book and every international law that ever was put, ever to be put, every right to defend ourselves, every right to fight back. Thousands upon thousands of people killed since 1948, and when the people of Palestine decide to resist, they are the bad guys, they are violent, they are terrorists. Excuse you. The thousands of people that you killed in Deir Yassin, a massacre that happened in 1948, and later on the 50s, and later on the 60s, and in Lebanon, 3,000 people in Sabra and Shatila, 3,000. There is footage for it. There is footage of the Israeli entity alongside Zionist pieces of horse manure in Lebanon, who were part of the Zionist entity, who stormed the Sabra and Shatila camp, killing 3,000 humans, 2,000 of whom are Palestinians and 1,000 of whom are Lebanese. They were opening the bellies of pregnant mothers, killing their babies. Everything that you hear any Israeli say about their history, it is stolen from the Palestinian history, stolen from the Deir Yassin massacre books. If you read the history of Deir Yassin massacre, you see that the Zionist entity was putting the Palestinian babies in ovens. It's not us. We are Muslims. We don't do that even to our enemy. And the evidence is what we saw from the captives that were released from the Hamas. How she was, could they read the body language? How that old woman stopped, turned back, and was happy to shake the man's hand because he never put a hand on her. But they put it in the basket of lies because they don't want to hear about it. Well, news flash, it is our land. We're taking it back. I don't care if you kill us all. With this new incursion, with this new massacre, now I have no doubt that an all-out war will break. Yes, as a mother, this brings fear to my heart, but as a woman, I see myself as a militant fighter. As a militant fighter for justice, bring it on.
I have a question on that, and honestly, that was incredible. I think you're such a powerful and passionate speaker, and people need to hear this. So, you know, obviously a huge role in this war and in the kind of exacerbation of it has obviously been this information war that we're seeing, the propaganda, you know, the insane levels of bias that the media is showing us every single day, what they're choosing to leave out, the voices that they're, you know, silencing purposefully, and then of course the propaganda that they're pushing out. Can you talk about that role, the role of the media there in shaping the public perception and what you've seen? Has it been worse than, you know, other times? Do you feel like they're pushing, you know, extra hard now? And the reason I ask is because of course they've pushed this narrative of the beheaded babies first, right? And there was no verification for that. And now all of a sudden, you know, after Palestinian voices get louder across the world, we see bigger numbers in protest than we've ever seen. We see more people kind of unpacking the media bias and understanding how present it is, they come with this second story of Shani Lut now. Again, no verification, Isaac Herzog, it's kind of a hearsay on his end. Where is the proof? But they come again with this beheaded babies and headlines that say, we have to, they just chopped her head off, and making this animalistic kind of image out of them to dehumanize the entire Palestinian cause. So is this the most intense level of kind of pushback that you've ever seen from the globe, saying, no, we see what's happening now? And do you think that's why the media is pushing so hard for this ISIS equivalence?
Yes, and I think it is good that they are pushing this hard, because at some point they will fall flat on their faces, and we have seen that happen. When have you ever seen a CNN reporter apologize for using a story before? Especially a story that they can cover up the way they want. But with the age of social media, despite the censorship, by the way, but with this day and age, with the age where they cannot really control the air, where people can surf in order to get information, I think that them pushing back like this is very helpful for our cause, because whatever you do, however you do it, however you say it, at the end of the day, people have eyes and they are seeing. Any sane human that sees the before and after scenes of the Baptist hospital would just sit and say, hold on, I did not sign up for this. Any human that sees faces of young babies being butchered, being killed in ways that we have never even imagined that could be possible would say, no, wait a second, I didn't sign up for this. I've seen stories as a Muslim woman that astonished me in the West. Look, I don't have TikTok. I don't really like it nor have the time for it. But I do see some of the TikTok videos on Facebook Reels and on Twitter sometimes. And I've been seeing this trend within the Western communities of people not understanding how is it possible for a Palestinian mother or father to lay to rest their child, and while laying it to rest, having tears flowing down their eyes, and then saying Alhamdulillah, meaning thank you, Lord. How is that even possible? They are talking about the level of belief found in the hearts of Palestinians to accept that calamity, despite the fact that the mainstream media, the Western mainstream media, is portraying them as people who deserve to die, as we heard on Channel 13 in Zionist Israel, saying that there are no civilians in Gaza, we will eliminate Gaza. And I tell you, there are no civilians in Israel, because you all go to war when you hit 18. You take your kids as young as 6-year-olds to boot camps to teach them how to fire. Some of the bombs that fell on us in 2006 were signed by your 11 and 10-year-old kids. Hence, what you will sow what you reap, and you will reap what you sow. Definitely, the same thing will come back to you. It will reciprocate to you. But going back to the media, it is a big war. We need to understand that we are facing multi-billion-dollar corporations that are being led by very smart people that put strategies for issues like this. But I think that on a personal level, that the Russia-Ukraine war and the propaganda that followed, and the rising of Nazism again, us seeing a Nazi in the Canadian Parliament and parliamentarians clapping for him, was a very big shock for the Western public. And I think when they hit the new massacres that they saw in Palestine, they were like, no, not again. We'll not allow you to deceive us. Hence, 100,000 took to the streets in London, more than 50,000 in Paris. 3 days ago, I was talking to a friend in Greece. She's a very, very good friend of mine. I do hope you follow her. Her name is Lamprini Toma. She's a journalist in Greece. And Lamprini she showed me a video and told me today, out of the blue, we just called for a protest without announcing it before, and we had 60,000 humans in the streets of Athens. We are talking about two separate worlds, two separate cultures coming together like this have never happened before. Never. Not even for a joint cause about, I don't know, climate. Even climate doesn't have people who come along and be joined in forces around it. But maybe the only thing that we ever saw bring people together was what you call soccer, what we call football. But this time it was a humanitarian issue. It was something to think about, and to think about out loud this time. And we don't need to underestimate the power of Generation Z and Generation I in the West, who really does not care about what Israeli propaganda comes from the government. They don't even trust the government to begin with. They are very smart. Don't listen to people who tell you that this generation is an idiot or ignorant, or they don't know how to think. No, 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 no. They are very smart. I see them every day in my classrooms. They are very smart. They just need you to feed them what they need to grab. They'll take it and run with it. They are capable of fully doing their own research. They are fully capable of critical thinking, of asking the right questions, and they're fully capable of second guessing authority. That is very important, especially in liberation movements. So the very important part of having the narrative of the Palestinians finally go out to the world, I put it back in the hands of Generation Z, and part of the millennial generation as well, who has had it from their authoritarian parents and their authoritarian regimes, and everything that is just putting pressure on their necks, whether in their jobs that they don't like, or their careers that they ended up in, or whatever majors they studied and they didn't like. And at the end of the day, they found themselves that they are lost, confused. They are not accepting the lives that they are leading. So that is very important, as well as the flourishing youth that challenge the authority. Yes, the mainstream media has a big hand in collective public opinion, or fabricating facts for the public opinion to absorb. But at the same time, I think that narcotizing dysfunction is not going to work anymore in media. I think that the influence of the elite is not going to work anymore. We've seen for the first time people basically boycotting major corporations at this level of effect around the world, that vocally support the Zionist occupation forces. And by far, I have never ever seen something like this. I hope this continues, and I'm going to be a bit selfish here, and I say I hope this continues when our turn starts.
It is hopeful, isn't it? Because what I'm seeing on top of, seeing the Palestinian movement is really spearheading the world, the entire world. And so they really are kind of, leading the resistance globally now. And I can see that just as a journalist throughout my years, I've seen the trust in journalism and the media, and also the respect go lower and lower and lower, to the point where today, we use platforms like X to and trust, our own sources, or verify ourselves, because we don't trust the media anymore. And what I'm seeing today is really the entire mainstream media just slowly falling. It started in 2001 on the 11th of September, where we started realizing all these lies that they used to go and invade and kill 1,500,000 people in Iraq. And then now we're seeing, first we saw the pandemic as well, and we saw all the media lies behind that. And now
throughout how the public is suffering because they don't take care of their own public. No medical care, no education. They're just stealing that money and putting it where it brings them more money.
Their playbook has really become spread the news, right? Every time one of these big propaganda kind of pieces come out that they want to push and just create a fake narrative around, the playbook I've noticed is spread the news as quickly as possible, disseminate it everywhere, get everyone to cover it within the next 24 hours, get everyone to parrot that and repeat it, and then at the same time, a couple of days later, you retract, you say, sorry, we didn't have any verification for this story, and it's too late. And the world has already shaped their mind with, this opinion of, Hamas is like ISIS because they behead people, and it's ridiculous. But we're onto their playbook, and I think that's a really, Palestine really is kind of the crux right now for the global resistance. It's the lies that the US and UK that are all in cahoots with Israel. The lies they're coming out, but then also the entire mainstream media machine kind of falling. So I guess you're right that in the most horrific way right now, there is hope for the
Yeah.
world, and Palestinians
And
are spearheading it.
oddly enough, you see that where it all started, it's now all ending. I mean, if you go back to the beginning of the 19th century up until now, and you see how the colonial powers of that world, including Paris, including France, Britain, and to a certain extent, Belgium and the United States of America, you see that if you look at the Arab map of the Arab states, you see that there was French occupation in Syria and Lebanon, and that fell. British occupation mildly in Iraq, and that fell. British occupation in Jordan and Palestine. British occupation in Egypt. French occupation in Algeria and parts of Tunisia, and also Morocco, and they were losing that those colonies that they occupied, and while they were leaving, it's as if back then, what was called Great Britain, as if they gave that file of the Middle East, they just handed that file to the United States of America, and America decided that that's it. There is an entity that we can actually fund, and we can actually support, and it will be our gateway towards this land, this vast land that the opportunity in it is so big. We haven't experienced it yet or even known about it yet. And that was even before they even knew that Saudi Arabia was one of the biggest reserves of oil and gas in the world, or Qatar, or Iraq, or for example, Lebanon and Syria. They don't tell you about this, but we do have fuel, we do have oil and gas, but we're not allowed to take it out. Only the colonizers can. We haven't been able to allow them, which is why they're trying to impose puppet regimes against us. It's not working. And at the same time, they are seeing that the colony that they worked so hard to strengthen was shattered in less than 2 hours, to be honest, 2 hours, but let's say less than 24 hours. There was cries coming out of Jaffa, known for the world as Tel Aviv, but we call it Jaffa because it's occupied and it had a name before it was named Tel Aviv. So cries were coming out of Jaffa from Netanyahu saying, he called within 3 days more than 6 times Joe Biden. Come, Papa, come save us. That was the call, because they, in less than 24 hours, all the trust that the Zionist entity was building within the minds and hearts of its colonial settlers to completely shut their eyes and just believe in the IDF and the IOF and believe in their army, to just completely trust their army, was shattered by 1,500 of the bravest men of Palestine, bravest fighters, militant, resistant fighters who gave their lives and sacrificed, and a lot of whom returned back with I don't know what you call them, but it's like the reward that you get from war, which is the settler colonial captives and the soldier captives.
A trophy, the spoils of war.
Spoils of war, which were not even touched, which were protected, given medical air, given food and water, despite the fact that the people of Gaza are now going hungry because there's no aid for them. Because the only reason they wanted to do that is to swap it with more than 20,000 detainees found in inhumane situations inside the Israeli detention centers. Women and children as young as 5 years old. 5. Yeah, if I am a liar, go search for yourself. Go find their names. Actually, the UN and Amnesty International, 2 bodies that I don't trust, have their names published. If you don't trust me, go and search for it. Go and search for the videos of young kids being chased in the streets. A girl as young as 3 years old running, and 3 soldiers running after her. The horror that this young baby went through. This has been going on since 1948, and Hamas wanted to swap these prisoners, get the babies and the women out, and everyone who is severely ill and under very poor health conditions out of prison. Netanyahu decided to cover his behind by a massacre. He doesn't know right now. By the way, if you follow through for the past week how Netanyahu was giving speech and speaking, he is counting every word, because he knows that At the moment, inside the Israeli regime, there are certain committees, certain investigative committees being prepared to point fingers when this ends. They think that it's going to end. It's not going to end. To point fingers at one another and blame one another, which will end up in us seeing Netanyahu behind bars, if we actually don't put him on a ship back to where he came from before that. But
don't send him back here. He's from the United States. We don't want him back. Send him back to Europe, please.
Well, what we saw at Dagestan the other day, it's like no one wants the colonizers back. I mean, I don't know. Should we like ask the United Arab Emirates if they would build an island in the ocean for them? They are really good in building islands in the ocean.
I think it would be great to isolate them far away on some island. Yeah.
Well, they have a whole area in Russia. They were given an entire oblast in Russia. They can all go there. It's free Jewish autonomous oblast. They can control it. They can have their religion, own language, everything.
No, but please be advised that they are the descendants of Israelites from here, from the Middle East, where I, an Arab woman, who I'm fairly a bit white because my mother comes from the Caucasus, her ancestry is from the Caucasus Sea, from southern Russia, but the rest of the humans here are actually brown humans, dark-skinned humans. Please, oh please tell me how an ancestry line can come with white, fair skin and bright blue eyes and claim that they own the land. Do you know that the highest levels of skin cancer is found in Israeli colonial settlers and not in Palestinians? Lo and behold, because they are natives to the land. Their body is made to fit the temperature of this land. They want to steal everything. Everything that they put their hands on, they steal it. Even narratives. They steal also stories. We're not going to accept that anymore. And they're not going to shame us because of what Europeans did to them. It's not our history. It's their history. We never put anyone in any gas chambers if there ever was any. We never killed anyone. We never built Auschwitz. We never bombed Jewish people. We never discriminated against them. We have Jewish communities right here in Lebanon. We have Jewish communities in Jordan, in Syria, in Yemen. We've been living together in, well, come and go peace because we always had colonizers, but we've been living together as communities forever without fighting. But when you decide to come on ships with money from the West, to build a colony, to basically rub Germany's nose in the dirt by making them give you top-notch technology every year to make them pay as part of reparations for the Jewish communities. What are you without all these fundraising campaigns? You're nothing. We saw that you're not. What are you without your air strikes? Take away the F-16 jet fighters. I swear to God, to any God that you believe in, Israelis will not remain here for 24 hours. Our land. We will take it back. Whatever they do, it's our land. Can you imagine me in Khiyam sitting in my house and seeing a Zionist colonial settler trying to come in again, or a Zionist fighter, or a Zionist force, or a Merkava tank? I will gladly stand in front of it. My land, kill me. I'm not leaving. Are you ready to die?
Yeah.
Yes, actually, no. But you touched on Yemen, and Yemen is a place that's very near and dear to us. We have a community there that we support, and they're in the chat right now saying things and sending you love. But I do want to talk about them because they're always, whenever something happens in Palestine, they're always the first out on the streets protesting and making statements.
Millions. It's like protest for them is so easy that there is no street long enough to handle their size and the number of people that go. Amazing humans. I've never seen people so steadfast and dignified the way that Yemenis are. I can't wait for the siege to be lifted. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to Sana'a. I have so many friends there that I've never met. only through virtual meetings and some classes that I even gave through virtual Zoom classes. But I have so many friends there, so many very close friends to my heart that I just want to go and just hug if I can. Amazing humans. I don't know if you heard what happened today, the statement that came out of the Yemeni armed forces.
We were gonna show it, and I want to ask you about it.
Yeah.
Pull it up. We have the statement from the Yemeni armed forces, as well as a kind of a little post from the Houthis. So could you pull up the pictures from the Houthis area? And that was from today. And I kind of want to point out the picture on the left, which is a Shahed, which was the drones that use in Russia has
Russia were used in Ukraine.
Yes, and then they all said, you know, they alleged that the Houthis had them. They were kind of scared. And Arya, play the video from Southern. That's the signature sound of the Shahed drone. So we know that the Houthis are active. We know that they've claimed the last 3 attacks. And I do want to read some of the messages from my friend, because I remember when it started and he said, you know, I'm scared, but they should actually be scared, because you don't know how to deal with people that aren't that have nothing left to lose, and Yemenis have nothing left to lose. And then today he said, I love you. You must prepare. There will be bombing in Yemen during the following days. Gaza must rest from the bombing, and we are ready to make the sacrifices for Gaza. So I'm going to cry a little bit, but something like that is remarkable to say. We're going to make ourselves completely vulnerable and open ourselves up to try to create some sort of diversion and make the Israelis kind of give us some more of that attention and take it off of Gaza. What do you make of kind of the Houthis now?
But let me start by saying, and I don't mean to be correcting you in any way, Sarah, but it's Ansarullah, because Houthis are just one of the hundreds of tribes that are part of Ansarullah, the Ansarullah movement, which is also part of the Yemeni armed forces. So it's the terminology that the West want us to get used to by saying it like Houthis, but they're just one tribe. And there are a lot of tribes that they have given their everything for Yemen, and now they are giving their everything for Palestine as well. So what do I think? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised one bit. People don't know that in the fight against a Zionist entity in Lebanon between 1982 and 1990, we had Yemeni brigades in Lebanon fighting side to side with the resistance. And what people don't know is the head of that brigade that was fighting in Lebanon, Israeli pilots took off from Jaffa, Tel Aviv, to Sana'a, bombed his house more than 30 years later, because he took part in fighting them in South Lebanon in 1982. There are reports about it with the names of the leaders and the brigades, and there are also footage and video of them fighting in Lebanon. So it is beyond one history that actually binds us together. It's Islam. It's and the word, when I say the word Islam, I'm not saying it's only about Muslims, because the word Islam literally means man aslama wajhuhu lillah, which means he who have given it literally his face, but when it's deeper meaning, it means he who have given his everything to the higher power and the spirit, which means it's not only about being a Muslim who follows Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. It's about knowing the truth, fighting for the truth, standing with the oppressed. Because why? Because at the end of the day, you know that you are going to die either way. Better die dignified than die a death that is undignifying. This is what Yemen is about. The way that they fight back is unprecedented. The way that they stood by the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine is unprecedented. The only people so far in the Arab world where their leaders issued threats against the Zionist entity and actually implemented those threats by sending those bomber drones and by sending those missiles. And by the way, Did ever people ask themselves why was the USS Carney intercepting those missiles, but it never intercepted the same missiles when they were headed towards Saudi Aramco? Yeah, ask yourself that. Because when it is going to touch the real interest of the United States of America, they are ready to do anything. Hence, the 56 the battleships and aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean right now standing, like if you have a really good binoculars, you can see them. You can see those 56 aircraft carriers standing in the Mediterranean for the first time since 1945. They have made all Western states who are shoes in the feet of the empire to bring their battleships to our house, our turf, our land to fight us. Are you dumb? Have you no idea whom you are fighting? Literally, Gaza, 363 square kilometers, and you're not able to take Gaza for day 25. The only thing that you're able to do is create havoc and massacres. There are a lot of us. We're more than 400 million. Are you going to kill us all? What are you going to do?
Now that was so great. I completely lost my train of thought. The militia.
But I want to say something just for the cause of the moment right now with the rockets and the drones that are falling on Eilat, which is on the most southern part of occupied Palestine. By the way, these missiles, which are 2,000 kilometers range missiles, I did a report on my show about 5 weeks ago. Almost 5 weeks ago, and I did a report because it was to commemorate the September 21 revolution in Yemen, and I did a report about the great military parade that happened there. And I mentioned in my report that there were new missiles that were unveiled that were farther than 2,000 kilometers. And I was just dropping a joke on my show saying that, dear Yemenis, be careful. Don't drop them right on us in South Lebanon. Be careful where you're dropping them. If it's more than that, just try to launch them away from Sada. Just go downward in Yemen before launching them. Because it is very, very important to know that Palestine is not alone, and that the Israeli entity does not know from which end the upcoming new strike will come. This factor of a surprise is a very, very important strategy. And I think that the axis of resistance has mastered it. I mean, you have the military bases of the US being targeted for now in Syria and Iraq. But we all know, for example, that Bahrain, which is very nearby Yemen, has the US's Fifth Fleet docking in the ports of Bahrain. We have also, for example, in the Red Sea, many sitting ducks that the Yemenis can just target. In the Mediterranean, they think that they are actually scaring us by bringing these 56 aircraft carriers to the coastal line of Palestine and Lebanon. Wallahi, we will have a parade when we see them being fired upon in the sea. We will be dancing in the streets while they rain bombs on us. You know why? Because there's a reason this land is called the land of the phoenix. You know how many times we've risen from under the rubble? You know, the first time I ever saw atrocity, I was 9 years old and watching a TV. We didn't live in Lebanon, but we were on Easter break in Lebanon with my family. And it was April, and 1996 Qana massacre happened. And it was the first time in my life I hear a bullet or a missile. And it was the first time in my life I see a dead body. And I saw one up close in the street that we were residing in. And then on TV, I saw the body of a 6-month-old baby being pulled out of the rubble wearing a onesie with his little, we call it étiquette, and it's a French word. We were colonized by the French. So the pacifier, with the pacifier linked to his onesie, and without a head. And there's footage of that online, if you don't believe me. And at that moment, I was 9 years old, and everything changed. I was no longer a child. They stole my innocence and the innocence of all the millennials at that time who were kids. That's what I saw. And then after that, I saw the Mansouri ambulance. You can research Mansouri, Mansouri ambulance, which was hit by the Israelis, and it was carrying wounded civilians, most of whom were children. And I saw a father grabbing his lifeless kid in his hands, and she has no facial expressions because she's full of blood. That was what I was watching as a 9-year-old child. Do you think I will grow up to be a princess? What would I grow up to be? The man behind me in the photo is my father-in-law. He was killed in 1977 when my husband was 5 days old. You think my husband will grow up to love Israel? Israel killed him in 1977, and he was a soldier in the Lebanese army defending his village. My children don't have a grandfather because of the Israeli entity, and you want me to do what? Stand with Israel? Mm-hmm. I'm going to be civil and not use any profanity, but I'm going to tell you something. Take multiple seats, sit down, educate yourself, and be ready, because we will rain hell on you just as you have rained down on us that hell.
We've gotten a lot of finger wagging from you, and I know that Lebanese finger wagging is very dangerous. But speaking of finger wagging,
we are all waiting for the ultimate one on Friday. Yes. Trust me. We are all waiting for Friday.
So, Aria, play the video. I think the one from today. As we wait for the ultimate finger wagging,
it says at the end, it says Friday, November 3rd at 3 p.m. Al-Quds time. So yeah, the connotations, so many. Zionists are analyzing them. They don't understand that they mean nothing except that be ready. Something is about to happen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I don't want you to make any like predictions because I don't want you to have to put yourself out there. But with Yemen kind of coming up just shy of declaring war, basically just saying we're going to continue to engage in what we're engaging in now, but not declare war just yet. What kind of messaging do you think you'll get from Nasrallah on Friday?
Threats.
Just okay.
For sure, threats. I don't know if it's I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it's going to wait till up then, because as I said, as we came along, there was a massacre in Gaza, mm-hmm. and they are now trying a new ground incursion, but we have full, we completely understand, we have full confidence that the resistance in Gaza will thwart that new attack. They have been doing amazing job for people who have been besieged under bombardment for 22 or 25 days so far. But when and if things start to get out of hand, we can't let Gaza be annihilated. Some people say, why wait? I understand their thrill and their because I've been for the past 3 weeks, I've been just talking people down a bit, because I know people since October 7 wanted to see the big Burkan missiles and the Khaybar missiles flying from Lebanon down to occupied Palestine. But the issue is you need to trust the Palestinian resistance, and you need to trust that the axis of resistance has a joint operations room, and you need to trust then when things escalate that the axis of resistance will have the back of Palestine, or else what are they really training for if not this major war of liberation? This has been the manifesto of every military wing of every political bloc that joined the axis of resistance. Their manifesto is, the end goal is the liberation of Al-Aqsa and Palestine. And you can't just keep watching, even if you know sometimes you might do something that is a bit miscalculated. You can't just keep aside and stay watching. I don't understand how Egypt, the land of 100 million, can still do nothing. I cannot fathom the idea how Jordan, that has the longest border with Palestine, comes out at such a very important, unprecedented historical moment and says, the spokesperson of the army said 3 days ago that we have agreed with the Americans to install Patriot missiles in Jordan. Against whom, ya Habibi? Against whom? You want to see us get killed? You want to put Patriot missiles because you know that the Iraqi and the Syrian armies, the Iraqi Hashd al-Shabi and the Syrian army will be flying missiles against a Zionist entity. Who are you protecting? Instead of standing with us, you have no idea how much undignifying this is. And when I say undignifying in the Arab world, it means a lot. Morals, values, dignity, steadfastness, and brotherhood are very, very important for the Arabs in specific and the Muslims in general. What are you doing? Do they really think that their puppet regimes will stay wherever they are right now? Not if, when the Zionist entity falls, because it's a temporary entity. They need to jump the wagon right now before it's too late. Because as I predicted that the West will see its own horrific scenes by its own people, I predict that will happen to the normalizing entities here in the Arab world as well. Egypt, Jordan, UAE, Riyadh. At the beginning of the first week of the war on Palestine, the liberation war, if you will, it was the first time I ever hear about a military wing inside of Saudi Arabia called the liberator of the Al-Haramain al-Sharifain. Haramain al-Sharifain meaning the two most honorable mosques found for Muslims in Mecca. So it's a new military wing inside Saudi Arabia operating besides the axis of resistance. It's a wave, you cannot stop it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
If people think that October 7 will come to an end anytime soon, and we're still again going to see some sort of negotiations similar to what we saw in Oslo 1993, wake up. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Wallahi, it's not going to happen. Because the level of atrocities that befell the Palestinians, if Hamas is in Gaza, why the hell is Israel bombing Jenin and the West Bank? Why are they having a full front ground incursion against Jenin and the West Bank and Ramallah and Al-Khalil, Hebron? Why are they not allowing people to go pray in Al-Aqsa, in Al-Quds? Why are they killing young men in the streets of Al-Quds? Where's Hamas there?
Yep.
This is an entity that is found on blood and will not be eliminated except with blood. This is not a prophecy. This is how things, it's ABC, it's physics. And this is how it's going to end.
I have 2 points, and also I've been watching the comments flood in, and people love you so much. Marwa. It's been such a great conversation with you today. So 2 points. Number one, on there's a big difference between actual civilians and then armed settlers. And as you said a little bit earlier in the conversation, right, Ben Gvir was arming settlers, just handing out guns one by one to everyone, giving them this right to shoot Palestinians on sight. And so it got me thinking that, of course, this term we're using it quite loosely because, on the one hand, there was a report published both by Amnesty International and by ICAD, in depth, and I keep bringing this up because I feel like more people need to know about this. They uncovered all these Telegram channels that had really disgusting footage of how settlers treat Palestinians, and there was so much evidence I couldn't even watch it all. I was just got sick to my stomach seeing the torture, the ridicule, the mocking, the cheering for death, and this was against women and children. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this conflation, and which you brought up a little bit earlier, of criticism with anti-Semitism. We saw the Israeli delegation just yesterday put on yellow stars during the meeting of the UN Security Council, right? They were being so dramatic and just victimizing themselves. And the thing with that is that then everyone is scared and self-censored because of this. But I wanted to read 4 quotes so that maybe the audience hasn't heard these. But Yoav Gallant, the defense minister of Israel, said there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting animal people, and we are acting accordingly. Ariel Kellner, Israeli politician of the Likud party, he said, now there's only one goal, Nakba, a Nakba in Gaza that will dwarf the Nakba of 1948. Daniel Hagari said, we are dropping hundreds of tons of bombs on Gaza. The focus is destruction, not accuracy. Ezra Yachin said, wipe out their families, their mothers, their children. These animals must not be allowed to live any longer. There are so many more that I could pull up here, but do you think that they're losing their victim card? Because I'm so sick and tired of this victim shit, when they're doing exactly the same thing that was done to their ancestors. And, this is just, you cannot use this anymore.
You know what really gets on the nerves of the Zionists? That the anti-Semite card does not work in this part of the world.
Nope.
I'm a Semite. Semites are Arabs and Jews. How can I be anti myself? That doesn't work. That's number one. Number two, the Holocaust crying and whining doesn't work here because, babe, newsflash, it was not us. You can use that wherever you want, but not here. Here, it's us who will flash that card. It's us who will say never again. And also, I think that they are not only losing their sympathy card, they are losing their minds, Yara, because the way that they are unfiltering themselves without thinking about it, the way that we are reading their body language when they are in shock, they are still in shock, but at the same time, they are unmasking this vile aggression to the entire world, which we have seen firsthand as natives to this land, but we never really had that evidence to show other people. And now people all over the world are watching them losing their minds in international podiums or on TV or in mainstream media, or when they are talking to their own communities, or with the racist, disgusting parties that the IOF is portraying. You see a lot of videos of them jumping and dancing, but what people don't understand, what they are saying is they're singing songs against Arabs and Muslims. Yeah. And by the way, Christians, if you are, what my mind does not fathom the thought of how Christians stand with Israel. They are literally your biggest enemies. They literally took away Bethlehem, where Jesus Christ was born. They occupied it, kicked people out. Any Christian who goes to the holy city, to the church of Sepulchre in Al-Quds, gets spit on by the Zionists. Don't believe me? Go do the research and watch it. I don't understand, especially how American evangelicals stand with Israel. There's no upstairs. There's like renting that area. They don't think for themselves. They drink that propaganda. I mean, if you are such a lover of Jesus Christ, why don't you come and visit the place where he was born in Bethlehem? I'm inviting you. I'm 11. Come and see for yourself. Come and see how they will. Well, you might not have the time because we're kicking them out, but come and see for yourself. Come and see
before they kick them all out.
and then in Ben Gurion Airport, I have had multiple friends who flew from the west through Ben Gurion Airport and left through the checkpoint to Jordan because they couldn't take it anymore. Because they knew that they're going to leave them in investigation for 6 to 7 hours. They're going to take their stuff. They're going to treat them in such a discriminatory, disgusting manner. And at the same time, sorry. And at the same time, they saw firsthand the discrimination and the way that they handle the Palestinians as if they are like cattle in a farm. And I mean it. People in the West like to call it an apartheid regime. It's not. It's an occupation. It's a colonization. An apartheid regime means that there is hope for it to become a democratic regime. No. That's not going to happen. It's one democratic state of Palestine. Point final. Point. But I advise and I suggest that Westerners who say that they stand with Israel to research in Hebrew on YouTube how the Zionist Jews of Israel treat the Palestinians. Watch firsthand. Watch the checkpoints of Al-Quds, Jerusalem. Watch the checkpoints of the West Bank. Watch the atrocities that has been committed against the Jenin camp, whether it's in 2002 or last in July 2023. What happened? We have so many massacres in our history, so many blood that was shed by our people that sometimes if we want to make like books or publications about it, despite the fact that we might not find a publishing house to actually have the guts to publish it, if it were in English. In Arabic you could, but in English you wouldn't. There are no enough books in the world to talk about the atrocities of the Zionist Israeli entity and the US occupation in our region. The atrocities of the US invasion of illegal occupation and invasion of Iraq is still felt to this day, especially in Anbar and Fallujah, where the rate of kids who are born with birth defects due to the use of illegal weapons and internationally banned weaponry like white phosphorus, for example, and other kinds of cluster munition, 500% more than 10 years ago. That's the rate of birth defects in Fallujah and Anbar. 500% more than 10 years ago. This tells a lot about what kind of weapon that they tested against the Iraqi people. And I cannot imagine what kind of bombs were tested on Gaza, especially on the night of Friday, October 27, the morning of October 28. I cannot imagine. I think you saw it. I did a show about it. It aired while I was speaking to you right now on Press TV. It aired right now on Press TV. I had amazing guests from Perth, Syrian girl Maram Susli, and from New Jersey, the former Marine Lucas Gage, and we spoke about this, and I called it Gaza's Ring of Fire. The munition that was used on Friday night, Saturday morning, was a new kind of weaponry that we have not seen being tested before. And I fear about what will be the consequences of this weaponry, not now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Well, given, as a final question today, given everything that we're seeing unfolding, what do you think is next for Palestine? How do you, sorry, my dog decided to join the conversation. How do you see this progressing? I mean, yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. What do you see happening next?
Well, that's one of the questions that I asked the Hamas representative today during our interview, which aired on Press TV. And I asked him, like, what do you anticipate will come out of this aggression, and what are your basic demands for it to basically stop? And they said that Hamas is ready. Not only Hamas, all the resistance factions in Gaza are ready to continue protecting Gaza and not allowing the entity to have a successful ground incursion into Gaza, and that they are fully capable of doing so. But at the same time, they want to see the necessary humanitarian aid being delivered to the people of Gaza, especially those in need of medical care, in need of medicine, in need of food, in need of, kids need milk, they need medicine, they need food, they need everything. It's a complete extermination of the people. But at the same time, he was very, very adamant on making it positive for everyone involved, that Hamas will not back down as long as Israel is continuing with this aggression. And if they think that they can erect those walls again between the Gaza enclave and Gaza, then they have no idea what they could just cut themselves into. But I believe that not in the event, we already saw the escalation by the Yemeni forces, armed forces announcement. I think we're going to start seeing some escalation right here in South Lebanon, and we have prepared ourselves for that. We have prepared our families for that. And to be honest with you, we can't wait to link our blood with the blood of our brothers and sisters in Gaza, because what we saw is beyond horrific, and maybe it will just be giving back a bit, telling them that, look, we are here, despite everything, despite the distance between us, we are here. And if starting a war to rid you from the calamity that you have been enduring throughout history, especially throughout the past almost month, we are ready to do it. We're not afraid of it. We're ready to do it. And we just need you to keep your heads high. We need you to keep your chins up. And we need you to know that we support you. We know how terribly you feel on a psychological level, because no human would remain sane after 25 days of continuous bombardment. You were telling me, Sarah, when we began, where were you in October 7 and October 8 and how it felt? October 8 morning, on Sunday, the clashes between the resistance forces, Hezbollah and Israel, began, and the bombardment campaign began with, it started with artillery shelling, and it was just facing my house. And it was the first time that I hear squeaks, not screams, squeaks coming out of one of my children. I have, each one of them has her own personality, but the middle one is usually the feisty one. And the screams that came out of her voice, of her throat, it was the first time I ever hear it, because it was the first time in their lives that they hear something like this. And her squeaks and her running up the stairs, just trying to find me, it broke a pain down my spine. And I still have that back pain up until now, because no mother can stand the voice of her terrified, horrified child. So that put into perspective, from an artillery that fell like 3 or 4 kilometers away from my house, imagine Gaza. Imagine the mothers and fathers of Gaza holding their children while their buildings are being bombarded and them being buried under the rubble. It's nothing. I'm ashamed to say that I have back pain because one of my daughters screamed because she was afraid of the what? I will start being able to have dignity again if and when I bury one of my children. That's the only time that I will feel slightly dignified in front of Gaza.
I don't know that I could think of a more poignant point to wrap the episode on. Marwa, you've been like incredible, absolutely incredible. The chat has gone crazy. This has been so inspirational. I think that Yara and I are gonna go join a militia somewhere. No, I'm just kidding. Very inspirational to hear from. And again, I want to reiterate that these aren't concepts that are well understood in the West. The idea of sacrifice and the very strong belief in a higher power that kind of encompasses a person's life and their relations to other peoples in the region. We just don't have that. So it was really amazing to have you speak so candidly about that to people. Most of our listeners are in the West, so hopefully they garner somewhere understand. They're all complaining about all the other shows. That show's too Zionist, that show's too pro-Israel, talking about all the other podcasters. So thank you for coming on. We'll have to touch base again after Friday, because I'm very excited.
For sure. And ladies, you never know. You might come along next spring and we might just get into my car and drive down from South Lebanon to Al-Quds and then to Gaza.
Don't say, yeah, we'll be in contact. We'll be in contact. Thank you. And thank you
so much, Marwa.
Marwa, why don't you tell our listeners where the show is? Because I know it got censored on YouTube, didn't it?
Yeah, they took down everything related to Press TV. Well, my show, you can find my show on presstv.ir under the title Mid-East Stream. And you can go to my Twitter account on X with @Marwa _Osman. You can find everything in my bio, especially my Telegram, because I'm trying to move out of the Western based platforms, because they silenced me as well on Facebook after my last trip to Moscow, when I did nothing except post a photo with Maria Zakharova, who's one of my idols. But They took that down with 10,000 followers. They took down my YouTube channel after I was trying to hold a relief campaign for Syria after the February 6th earthquake with 4,000 followers on YouTube. That was also gone. Now I should be heading to 100K on Twitter, but I was shadow banned for more than 5 years. So I'm barely now hitting 40K, but I know that I'm shadow banned. I know most people don't see my tweets, which is why I'm moving slowly to Telegram and hopefully maybe start something on Rumble. But because I'm now working on a second show. I have a show called The Mideast Stream, as I said, on Press TV, and now we're working. Hopefully soon. It's a surprise. I just say it's an expose on Press TV.
An expose. Well, we will look for it. And thank you again, Marwa. And we will be in touch. Please hit like, subscribe, share, all of that fun stuff so Aria doesn't yell at me. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Patrick Henningsen, and Thursday we'll have Kevork again. Thank you again, Marwa. We'll continue our trip through the Levant. Thanks again.
Bye.